Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, dear students. Today we are going to have a discussion on principles of growth and development, which is the part of the earlier session, which is aspects of development. I'm Dr. Iram Khan, Assistant Professor at IASC Faculty of Education, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. So let us start today's discussion. Uh, the objectives of today's session will be that after going through this entire session, you will be in a position to discuss the general principles of growth and development. Also, you will be in a position to make an explanation of the educational implications of principles of growth and development. So first of all, we have earlier also discussed about growth and development, but we just have to make a kind of recap. So we first of all see the meaning of growth and development. Basically, we have discussed that change is the law of nature, and an individual from being a fertilized egg, which is the beginning of a human life, so from being an fertilized egg turns into a full-fledged human adult. In this process of change, the person undergoes a cycle of changes brought about by the process of growth and development in various dimensions. These dimensions are physical, mental, social, emotional, and like language development and many more. So therefore we can say that in wider sense, both the terms growth and development can be used for any change brought about by maturation and learning. And this learning can be any sort of, it can be a formal type of learning or it can be an informal education. Uh, and all these changes are basically the products of both heredity and environment. So this is the most important thing, that any sort of growth and development is basically triggered because of the heredity and the environment of the child. So we will just go ahead and see that what else we have to see here in this topic of growth and development, because there are a lot of principles on which the growth and development is based on. So let us see a few of the general principles of growth and development. The first principle which I will be discussing here will be the principle of continuity. First of all, we have to get an idea that what exactly this entire process of defining the principles is. Whenever we talk about a person's or an individual's process of growth and development, there there is a process which is following a kind of trend, which is based on well defined principles. So all these principles are actually known as the principles of growth and development, which will be discussed here. So the first principle is principle of continuity. So what is principle of continuity? Basically, the process of development follows continuity. As we have earlier discussed, that it goes or it starts from the from when the egg is there in the in mother's womb. So this process of development starts once a human being is still not taken birth, and it goes on till the person, the individual, actually completes its life, or the entire life is actually completed and the person dies. So we can say that this process is continuous and it never stops. It goes on. An individual starting his life from a tiny cell develops his body, mind, and other aspects of his personality through a continuous stream of development. And it goes on through various dimensions. So this is something which says, this principle says that the life of human being follows a trend of development which starts from the womb of the mother and goes till the tomb. So this was principle of continuity. Then we have to see that what is the next principle. The next principle is the principle of non-uniform rate of growth and development. Let us see that what exactly this means. Uh, Although the development follows continuity, as the first principle says, yet the rate of growth and development is not steady and uniform at all the times. So it actually varies. It proceeds from rapidly, it proceeds more rapidly in the earlier years of life, but slows down in the later years of childhood. Again, at the dawn of puberty, there is a sudden rise in the speed of growth and development, but it is not maintained for long. Therefore, at no stage the rate of growth and development shows steadiness. It rather takes place uh, with lots and lots of kind of stoppages, and then again it speeds up. So we can say that the rate of growth and development is not uniform throughout the life of a human being. So this was the second principle. Then we have to see what is the third principle. The third principle of growth and development is the principle of individual differences. So what exactly this principle says? According to this principle, there exist wide individual differences among children with respect to their growth and development in various dimensions. Each child grows at his own unique pace. So we can't generalize the pace of growth and development among the children. There is a possibility that if there are siblings, one sibling is growing with a different or developing with a different rate, and the other sibling may be developing with a different pace. So the principle of individual differences says that the growth and development of every individual is actually following one individual sort of pace. So it can't be generalized. Now let us see the next principle. The number 4, principle number 4, it says basically this principle is called as the principle of uniformity of patterns. So let us see that what exactly uniformity of pattern is all about. Uh, Development basically does not proceed at a uniform rate, and it shows marked individual differences. We have already discussed it in the previous principle. Yet it follows a definite sequence or pattern, and in somewhat uniform, it is basically somewhat uniform in the offsprings of a species. For example, the motor development, the development of limbs, those locomotory organs. uh, you must have seen that there is some sort of order. Like in after 6 months, a human baby basically starts sitting. Then once the baby is of 1 year, the he or she actually starts to stand up, and after few, like in a month or so, uh, this baby actually stands without taking the support of anything. And then once this baby actually crosses the age of 1 and is in approximately in the age of 1 year and 2 months or so, uh, these babies start to actually uh, actually walk. So this is some sort of you can say that uniformity in the pattern of the locomotory organs or the locomotory development or motor development. In the same way, we can say that the language development in all children actually seem to follow a definite sequence. First of all, they start babbling, like in the age of approximately 7 8 months. They start to actually babble some sort of words, and then this goes on, and like once they are of around 2 years or 2.5 years, they are in a position to speak a few words very clearly. And then once they are of 3 years or so, they most of the children actually start speaking in sentences, like they start framing sentences. So there is a sequence, there is a kind of uniformity of pattern. So this is the principle number 4. Now let us see the number 5 principle. This principle is the principle of proceeding from general to specific responses. So let us see what is the principle of proceeding from general to specific responses. In all the phases of a child's development, general activity precedes like specific activity. Let us understand this, what exactly this says. The responses are of general sort before they become specific. For example, the child waves his arms in general and makes random movements before he or she is capable of some specific responses, such as reaching out for a particular object. Similarly, when a newborn infant cries, the whole of the body is involved. With growing, growing age, the crying is limited to the vocal cords, eyes, etc. They once they start crying, actually they only bring out voice, like they cry through their voice, and tears come out of their eyes. So the whole body is not involved now in the crying process. Earlier, when they were young, once they were crying, they actually used to make all those movements of their hands and then their legs, and all the like the complete body was involved in the process of crying. So gradually, this process of crying is now limited to some sort of organs. So the crying happens to the vocal cord and the eyes. Then in case of language development, the child learns general words before specific. The person, like this child, uses the word. Let's take the word of daddy, or papa, in greeting many of the men, and like every male, whenever there is a person or a guest, because he knows this word of papa or daddy or abba or any sort of word, which is actually for the male parent. He or she uses the same word for every man. But once this child grows up, after some time, this particular word of which is for the father is used only for the father, not for every man. So in this way, the language development goes on from general to specific. So this was the fifth principle, which was principle of proceeding from general to specific responses. Now let us see the other principle. Number 6, the principle of predictability. Let us see what is this principle of predictability. Basically, we can say that development is predictable. What is this? With the help of the rate of growth and development of a child, it is possible for us to predict the range within which this person, this particular child, is going to mature the development. Uh, and maturity of development is going to go in which way can be predicted. For example, if we take the X-ray of the bones of the wrist of a child, this will be in a position to tell that approximately what this child's ultimate size will be. This can be done. Like if we go to a medical practitioner, and we want to just have a look that the development is actually happening properly or not. So the doctor will take the X-ray of the whole body, and by actually checking through the development of bones, of different organs, this of legs and of hands, or different like bones, the doctor can predict that what will be the approximate size of, or the height of this child. But it will be approximate. We have to just think of this also. Similarly, the knowledge of the present mental ability of a child will help in predicting his ultimate mental development. This is also possible. So we actually can check the mental ability of a child, and through this through the checking of this mental ability, we can actually make an estimation that what will be the future kind of mental development, mental development of the child. So this is the principle of predictability. Then the next principle, uh, before going to the next principle, we actually have to mention this point, that all these principles of growth and development are approximate in nature. So we can't say that in every, and there are exceptions as well. So we can't say that these are actually going to tell you only everything in definite tense. Basically, these are approximations. So we have to always just keep this thing in mind, that the development is a process which is basically qualitative in nature, not quantitative, basically qualitative in nature, and it is a approximate process. We can make a guess, we can make an approximation, but we can't talk in definite tense in case of development. So now let us go to the next principle, which is the principle of integration. What exactly this principle says? The principle of integration actually says that it is true that development process goes from general to specific, or from whole to parts. It is also seen that specific responses or part movements are combined in the later processes of learning or development. So basically, this principle says that the entire body parts actually start working individually, one by one, and like the precision in the actions, the functioning actually goes with in a sequence. But at last, all of these organs, all of these parts of the body actually make an integration and show all sort of developmental activities. So we can say that the involvement of the body parts uh, starts from a specific, or one by one, and then it goes on the entire body, or goes on to whole. So it is the integration of whole and its parts, as well as to the specific and general responses, that make a child develop satisfactorily in the, like basically the satisfaction level of the child's development can only be once we actually observe the development of all the parts of the body as well as the whole body. So every dimension of the growth should go on well. Then only we can say that the body is actually the human body, or we can say that the entire personality of this human being is developing in a proper way. So this is the principle of integration, where we can say that the parts of the body actually develop and then they integrate into whole, and in this way the entire human body and the personality basically develop. So this was the principle of integration. Now let us see the next principle of growth and development, which is the principle of interrelation. So what is the principle of interrelation? Basically, the growth and development in various dimensions like physical, mental, social, language development, emotional development. So there are various dimensions. We are actually discussing this for in the previous discussions also. And all these dimensions are interrelated and interdependent. So growth and development is any one dimension, like if any one dimension is affected, the growth and development of the child in other dimensions will also get affected. So because of the interrelationship, the interdependence, if one dimension is affected, there will be a kind of substantial, you can say, change, or substantial kind of diversion can be seen in the other dimension. For example, children with above average intelligence are generally found to possess above average physical and social development. The lack of growth in one dimension uh, diminishes the bright possibility in other dimensions. So this is why a child having poor physical development is actually supposedly tend to regress in emotional, social, and intellectual developments. So This is something which actually tells us that we have to take care of each and every dimension of growth and development. Then only the proper development of a human being will be done. So this was the principle of interrelation. Now let us see the next principle, which is the ninth principle. This is the principle of being joint product of heredity and environment. And this is something which we are discussing from the first lecture itself. Basically, uh, whenever we talk about growth and development, we can say that these aspects are the joint product of heredity and environment. So these two things, this heredity and environment, are very much important in the development of a child. So a child at any stage of its growth and development is a joint product of both heredity and environment. The forces of heredity and environment directly or indirectly influence the person's growth and development in any dimension at all the times. For example, if the child is having genes like from the parents or from the from the forefathers, that the child is having some sort of features, facial features, so we can't expect some sort of different kind of features from in the child. In few of the cases, there is an exception also which can be seen, because nothing is definite here, but still we can expect that what kind of features this child is going to have, from which who is actually born from what's the features having in the mother and father. So basically this is heredity, and whenever we are talking about the environment, every sort of thing which is in the surroundings, the nourishment, uh, the culture, the background, then the rearing, then like all sort of facilities, resources which are available. Everything is the part of the environment. So this was the principle of being joint product of heredity and environment. So now let us see the next development principle, the principle of developmental direction. So what is this? The principle of developmental direction. Let us see that what exactly we can say whenever we are talking about the directions involved in the development. We can say that if we go ahead and check that how development takes place, we can follow two type of directions or patterns. The first pattern can be cephalocaudal or cephalic caudal, and the next can be proximo-distal. So let us see what exactly these two terms are all about. The first one, which is cephalic caudal or cephalocaudal development, uh, it means that development proceeds in the direction of the longitudinal axis. What exactly this means? That the development actually takes away from head to foot. So we can see that the first the child actually gains control over his or her head, and then like the direction of gaining control actually starts from the head, and then it goes towards the direction which is longitudinal in nature. So after the head, the arms are actually uh, developed properly, like the functional development of arms happen, and then after the arms we can see that the control on the legs happens. So here we can see that the development goes on from head to foot. So this was cephalic caudal or cephalocaudal development. Now let us see the next sort of direction, that is proximo-distal. What is proximo-distal? Basically, the proximo-distal tendency of development says that the development proceeds from the center to the periphery. So in the beginning, it says that in the beginning, the child exhibits its control over the large fundamental muscles. But afterwards, due to growth and development of smaller muscles, the child can exhibit more movements that are refined. For example, we can say that the control over fingers actually come after the control over the arms and the hands. So this is very actually common to see that first in first instance the child starts to use his or her arm, and then the wrist is being used, and then the fingers and the, which is also concerned to the pincer grip, is actually developed. So at the later stage only, we can see that the child is using the fingers precisely and writes in a proper way. So this was basically the principle of developmental direction, which has two particular directional ideologies. The first one is cephalic caudal or cephalocaudal, and the second one is proximo-distal type of direction. So let us see the next. The next principle is the principle of non-linear but spiral nature of development. So you can see here on the screen, we have got a diagram. This diagram is of a spiral, which actually starts from uh, like you can see that there is this particular spiral is starting, and at the base the spiral is narrow, and at the top the spiral actually expands and it is wider. So this diagram actually is going to explain how the development is spiral in nature and it is not linear. So the child does not proceed straight or straightly on the path of development with a constant or steady space. Actually, this child makes advancement during a particular period, but then it takes rest in the following period to consolidate uh, its development, and in advancing further, uh, the turning back, coming back and forth, the development process comes back and forth, and this in this way, going coming back and forth, it actually goes on, and the you can see that the spiral is expanding and becoming wider at the top. So we can say that in the beginning, the narrow spiral shows that the child is actually expanding the development process little bit, and then you can see that the spiral is actually coming, you can see the arrows, these arrows are actually coming back to make the precision in the functionality of the organs and all. The those developmental aspects are actually repeated, or the, they are actually taken aback, and then we go on further, and in this way we make precision in our functionalities. So for example, if we just take a random example, while starting writing, first of all we just make kind of scribbling on the pages, like we just do all sort of sketching, and then we go on writing few of the letters, and at times what happens, writing these letters are not in a very proper way. So we can see that the writing is not that good. So we actually revisit, the child revisits maybe with the help of the teacher or the caregiver, and this revisiting actually can be in a way in which the entire writing process is actually repeated, and the other way of right kind of way in which this letter can be written is actually taught by this caregiver or the parent, and then this child learns the exact correct way of writing the proper letter. So in this way, the precision in writing actually happens. So we can see that this revisiting and coming back and forth in the development process happens, which actually signifies the principle of non-linear but spiral nature of development. So now let us see that what are the educational implications of principles of growth and development. So we have seen 11 principles of growth and development. All these principles are actually important in the life of human beings, and we have to see that for the purpose of education, how important these principles are. So all the principles of growth and development carry wide educational meaning for the children, for the parents, and for the teachers. Uh, we can explain them in multiple ways, but we will just go ahead with actually glancing through few of those principles and how they are important for the children, for the parents, and the teachers. So the principle of individual differences among children with respect to their rate of growth and development. So this particular principle helps in planning for the education and other activities, because we get to know that how what will be the rate of their development, and like every child is individual, and like individual differences are there, and every child is unique in nature. So if we are aware of all these things, it will be helpful for us to actually plan for their education and for their future activities. So a teacher or parent will not underestimate or overestimate the future competency or expectations from the child. Once they will be aware of the points related to this child's physical, mental, and social development. So this is something which is very important, and it is to be taken care of by the children, by the child's parents and the teacher. Then the principle of interrelation and interdependence of the various aspects of growth and development help us to aim for the harmonious growth and development of the personality of the child, and warns us, like it actually warns us not to develop a particular aspect at the cost of any other aspect. So we have to see that if the child is having certain sort of difficulty in one aspect of its personality, or we have to be very much cautious about, and we have to see that how we can help him, because every sort of developmental aspect is interrelated and interdependent. So for the harmonious growth and development of the personality, it is very much essential for the parent and for the teacher to actually take care of that. If there is some difficulty in one sort of aspect, we have to see that how we can sort out this particular difficulty, so that the other aspects are not getting affected. So the knowledge of uniformity of pattern with respect to growth and development makes it possible for the parent and teachers to plan ahead of time for the changes that will take place in children. So this is like, we can, if we know that this is something which is going to happen in future, we can actually plan that how we can make our actions and our plans in which we can help the child to grow better. So then the knowledge of the joint role of heredity and environment will help the parents in proper upbringing of their children. So this is very much important. We have to see that in which environment, in what sort of like surroundings or neighborhood the child is actually growing. So if we are aware of that, what is the environment which is given to the child, we can actually maintain a proper upbringing pattern of the child. So this is something which is useful for the teachers, because these are the educational implications of the principles of growth and development. So with this, we have come to an end of this discussion. Now let us just make a quick recap. We have seen today the general principles of growth and development and their educational implications. So basically, the changes brought out in the individual by the process of growth and development tend to follow some well-defined principles, uh, which we have discussed. So these were the principles of continuity, uniformity of the rate of growth and development, and the principle of individual differences, uniformity of patterns, then proceeding from general to specific responses, then the principle of integration, principle of interrelation, predictability of development, then the principle of developmental directions, where we have seen the cephalocaudal and the proximodistal direction, then the spiral nature of development and its evolution, as a joint product of both heredity and environment. So these were all the principles which we have discussed today. And the knowledge of these principles of growth and development may provide quite useful to the uh, like these knowledges, like if we are aware of these principles of growth and development, they can prove to be very much useful for us, the parents and the teachers, for ensuring the harmonious growth and development of the personalities of our children. So, for example, the correct knowledge of the growth trend of a child may help the the teachers and the principals, or the administrators or the parents, to not underestimate or overestimate the expectancy from the children or from the specific child. Similarly, the knowledge of the principle of individual differences may remind all of us to plan the education and care of our children in view of their wide individual differences. So these are the things which are actually very much important if we are playing the role of a parent, a teacher, a caregiver, or an educational administrator. So this was all about the general principles of growth and development. I hope that this discussion is going to be fruitful for you all, and you are enjoying this process of learning. Hope to see you in the next session. Till then, thanks from my side. Thank you so much.